Sounds good.
Well, hey, thanks again for joining. First of all, I guess we should start with tell us a little bit about your background and where you're at currently.
For sure. I'm currently based in Denver, Colorado. I have a background in industrial design, where I completed my degree in Ottawa, Ontario. So I'm from Canada, moving down here. And I started off in footwear and then moved to soft product equipment and footwear. And then I came back to footwear later in my process or my career, and kind of stuck to it. So now I'm designing for Ultra. I work mostly on trail product, and yeah, I'm just having fun doing it and learning and kind of connecting with the industry that way, and yeah, trying to make some cool stuff.
That's awesome. Did you always have a passion or I guess an interest in footwear, or did that grow as you went through school and stuff?
I had a deeper interest in sport and how I guess equipment and um, like your clothes and your shoes impacted how you played and your performance. That was something I always had kind of a curiosity in, but I don't think I actually thought I'd be designing footwear or designing anything that athletes were ever actually going to use until maybe towards the end of my college years. And then I kind of just made a big effort to break into performance footwear. It's not how it went. I was designing leather shoes. That was my first
Okay,
internship out west. And then slowly but surely, kept persisting and trying to get into performance. And then I finally broke into the industry after I graduated.
that's awesome. Well, good for you for keep pushing and breaking into the industry that you wanted to get into. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Um, is there a design like aspect or design hill that you're like super passionate about that's kind of to die on for you, or that you want to make sure that comes through as you design these products?
Yeah, I mean, hate to say that traditional schooling was spot on this one, but we were taught that form followed function in design
Okay.
school, and that's I'm sure you've heard it before, but that's definitely something that influences how I create product, one, and then sometimes how I have better confidence creating newness in product. So sometimes you can tell when someone might be designing for the sake of newness or to make something look different, whereas maybe that unique kind of aesthetic in whatever is being designed is actually has some functional reasons behind it. And you can always kind of tell the difference in product. Um, runners or consumers aren't dumb, right? They're able to kind of tell what you're putting out there for them. So I try to stay true and honest in my design work, and yeah, I've just never been proven wrong. If you're trying to find a new solution to using new tech, it's going to come out looking different from something that's been created in the past. So I've never shied away from just following function first. Yeah.
Is there a iteration process if you're trying to do something new that you're able to follow to make it successful, or to at least see if it can be tested?
That newness comes from new insights. So it could be like research, or it could be new technology that we know does a better job of accomplishing something, or it could be a new process that a runner is partaking in that current shoes kind of um, don't address. So that newness comes from a place that needs to be researched and tested, and you need to fail, and you need to kind of stumble to make sure you get it right, because oftentimes we don't know everything about these, whether it's a new insight or a new technology. We don't know anything, and that's kind of the fun part. So it's not linear. It's a lot of failure going back, research, and it's yeah, fun process.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you mind giving an example of like new technology? I think that's something that is kind of hard for, at least in my perspective, users and consumers to understand like what a piece of technology is that goes into a shoe, like textiles versus materials, so on and so forth. Can you give like a brief example of a technology or something that akin to that?
Yeah. I can't speak on any specifics, but I can tell you where the industry kind of focuses on. At the chemical level, it's like it's deriving new polymers or new mixes of different plastics that have these, I guess, different properties that
Mm-hmm.
might be good for, one kind of sport or the other. And then you have the plated world where it's carbon fiber plates and footwear that, people try to leverage for propulsion, protection, and things like that. That world also kind of has its own focus and its own, I guess, amount of attention that people are putting in to try to progress. So it starts at the very very base level of raw material and like how can we improve the raw material, and then once it gets to the designer, it's already kind of been looked at by engineers, chemists, um, to kind of better understand how it can be leveraged. And then when it's in the hands of an inline designer, that designer is trying to figure out how best to leverage it from a, I guess, um, more consumer or runner focused lens, rather than a lens of through the chemical properties of the material. So it's a it's a very very long line of where that that newness comes from to how it's being implemented into the industry. It's a long process.
That's cool. So it sounds like quite a bit of material science happens in the beginning iteration stage. Is that fair to say? That's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah. And then to be fair, other times there is kind of um, newness that can be designed into using maybe a material that everybody has access to, but designing it in a clever way where you're getting more out of it. A good example might be on the the holes in on's midsoles. That's just design geometry, right? They didn't necessarily need to reinvent a new foam, but they incorporated a new geometry that was designed into creating um, what they claim is a performance benefit. Um, and that wasn't done in a lab, right? That was done in a studio, with an idea about forming foam. Yeah,
Interesting. Thanks for helping with the delineation there. That's really interesting.
yeah. Hmm.
Is there a specific problem you're trying to solve when designing a shoe, or I guess how do you approach that? Do you approach it from who's going to be potentially in it, or is there a problem that you're trying to solve as you're going through that design iteration phase?
Yeah, I think you won't fail to create product that people love if you start with the runner themselves and you start with their experience and you start with trying to frame everything you know about the product that you're trying to design from their eyes, right? So um, things that we need to address usually when building footwear are comfort, and then if you're in performance footwear, it's the performance attributes, and then one thing that people might not like to give enough credit to is it needs to look good. It has to look good actually, because I don't know where this quote came from, but it was look good, feel good, feel good. Um, yeah, feel good, play good, I think, or
Yeah,
something like that. I may have
yeah.
butchered it, but I think
No,
you
I
know
get the
what I'm
sentiment.
referring
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, so kind of gluing all that together, I think. you know, builds product that people really end up loving. But if a shoe that performs well isn't comfortable, people are gonna try it, maybe not love it,
Right.
um, because it ultimately it needs to make you feel comfortable before it performs very well. So that's kind of like maybe the priority of things that I design for.
That's awesome. Is
Yeah.
there is there ever a time where a product might look good maybe on the shelf or in the design phase, and then once you put it on somebody, you guys go back and make changes? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We do, or I'll speak to kind of the industry definitely tests against, the product they put out there before they commercialize it. It's a very common part of the process. Yeah, we get a lot of feedback from the runners, the consumers. We try to work in tandem. We try to really bring them into the whole process, even before briefing. We try to have focus groups and really understand um, like new perspectives or things that we've missed, or just really reinforce what what our perspectives are on the product that we want to create. So we bring in consumers throughout the whole part, and we make edits throughout many stages in the process. Yeah,
Sounds like a fun process. It's awesome. Um,
yeah, man.
are you ever designing for a fast shoe, or are you designing for like a durable shoe? Are there traits like that that you design for? How does that play into your process?
For sure. I think when you say fast, I'm thinking race.
Okay.
So I have worked on race product, and that product kind of, you want to communicate an attitude. So that goes into a lot of maybe form exploration and material, combining different materials to give like maybe an expression of fast. And then that why it's important to me is because it plays into that look good, feel good
Right.
kind of belief or statement. You do want to have that mental connection between how your product is performing and how it's looking. It kind of needs to be cohesive. You don't want something that speaks very bulky, slow,
Right.
and um I don't know, overbuilt maybe. If you're running 100 kilometers in it, right, you want to feel what the performance attributes are doing for you. It's a whole cohesive kind of sentiment towards the product that you're wearing. So yeah, designing for fast, and it's subjective, right? You got to put your runner at the center of what that means first, and then you gotta kind of understand it for how they see it, and then maybe work with them to bring that to life.
Do you design shoes for feet or for people? Is that how much of like the analysis of the feet go into that, or are you looking at a cohort of people like you mentioned earlier, like for a race or for trail runners? Are you looking to deliver mostly for a cohort? How much of the people versus the feet go into the design process?
Yeah. When you say people versus feet, the way I interpret it is that when you say feet, you're excluding the foot from what's happening everywhere else in the body. And your brain has a very big part to play on how you interpret your experience in your feet, how you interpret different materials, how you interpret the stiffness that your foot is experiencing. So, as a designer, I'm more focused on the people, um, but the parameters sometimes of, for example, how we understand the biomechanics that are taking place in the foot. That might come from an engineer, and they might help set those parameters for where and how to design. They might help influence that. But I think it's my job to kind of frame myself from the people, the person's brain, and how they're experiencing their foot So it's not that I'm neglecting the foot, but I'm just definitely taking a more holistic approach to how to design rather than diving in immediately into those kind of um, areas where you can focus on, you know, mechanics and materials, and it has to start from the top and then filter into those details. Yeah, that's
Going
how I
back to
would put
the
it.
okay,
Yeah.
goes back to that, uh, making sure the product looks good as well. Like you said, there's a lot at play here. So I appreciate you putting that into perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is there are there any maintenance habits or secrets within the industry that consumers are unaware of? Maybe like do X, Y, and Z, and your shoe might last longer. Like any from a design aspect, or I mean, it seems like you're probably really hands on with the materials. Is there anything that we're missing as just kind of generic consumers that we can maybe learn from the masters here?
Yeah, this is something actually I learned more recently. But keeping your shoes clean actually reduces the amount of like internal friction that can happen between the materials,
Hmm.
and it can actually lessen how much abrasion is going on and how long these materials last. So that was kind of like, it's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So that was kind of something I learned a little bit more recently, that making an effort to keep things clean, away from, you know, little rocks and mud between your races, or even in your race, or while you're, you know, training, can make a difference in the longevity of those materials. So yeah, I'm the type of person that believes in, you know, using your shoes and beating them up,
Yeah.
and getting a full experience out of your shoes. But definitely have been keeping my stuff a lot cleaner since.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Keep those trail shoes clean. Get that mud and rock those mud and rocks out of there. That makes sense.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Are there any materials specifically that make a difference in terms of when you're designing? Like, are there and you don't have to name the specific materials, but are there like A tier, B tier, C tier materials that you're looking at, or how does that play into the design aspect for you?
Yeah, 100%. That comes down to also working with partners that have that focus, maybe at the chemical level of what they're providing, to maybe even the design, because there's a lot of design that goes into these materials as well. And oftentimes you want to partner up with those people who are invested at the chemical level, on all the way through to the design phase of the material. And those people who aren't just, you know, sourcing maybe their raw material from someone else, but are actually involved in, you know, how they're sourcing that, or how that raw material is created. Those are the people that you definitely want to work with, um, to create, you know, that highest performing, or maybe most designed um, product. But the industry is big, man. It's a huge industry, and there's a lot of players, and there's a lot of opportunity to kind of work with different players, and there's always newness. There's always people trying, who have maybe the same hunger as I do, to try to build um, better product, and maybe they have their own niche, like for example Boa or Vibram. These are more well-known players, and I only list them because they're extremely commercial. um, they have, you know, a drive to keep elevating their standards and try to kind of maintain um, a certain level of quality and performance, right? So players like that uh, might help push brands further, along with obviously the equity that these names have. Um, yeah,
Competition creates greatness, man. Keeps you guys not you
absolutely.
necessarily, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
having
no,
competition out there makes you stand on
but
each
it
other's want
does.
to keep it pushing. Yeah.
But it does me as well. It keeps you honest. You can't, and especially when it comes to performance product, the runners keep you honest too. You can't, there's no deception in what works and what doesn't. People will let you know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man, runners, we love our shoes, man. We love our shoes. Do you have any design beliefs that have changed your mind over time? I mean, as you've gone from, thanks for sharing your background in terms of going from the leather shoes to where you are now. Is there anything that has changed in that time, or maybe even been reinforced, not changed?
Yeah. Form follow function is something that's like, keeps getting hammered in. And whenever I'm like doubtful of it, I try to maybe reframe the problem that I'm solving for. And then that kind of gives you a new solution or maybe a new avenue of how to design around something. And then that always keeps my job kind of interesting and keeps me cemented around that belief. Um, but the in design school we were, I guess, early in design school, I would say, we had this idea that the design process was a little bit linear, where you have your, concepting stage, and then you have your maybe your research, and then your synthesis, and then your execution, and you're creating your product. But in the industry, and working with people, and like I said, having those processes where we validate and we test against our product, it's definitely not like that. Um, it's like a circular kind of process, and sometimes not even circular. It's like a star. It jumps from point to point where you need to kind of implement maybe a new insight that you only realized at the end of your process, and kind of you need to overhaul what it is you're creating. So it's a bit chaotic, but it is like an honest design process, I would say.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Keeps evolving. That's great.
Yeah, 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 it's fun.
As you design like a version one shoe and then you move on to version two, how do you consider the folks who loved, the first iteration and don't want you to change anything as you move to, maybe a new piece of technology that you mentioned earlier comes out that, gosh, we need to put this on this newer product. How do you make
Hmm.
those decisions? Are those cut and dry decisions, or like is there a process you go through as you iterate to the next version of a shoe?
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's you gotta always kind of stay within the same frame that you created that solution in, and that frame is really just trying to see the product through the consumer's eye or the runner's eye, and you need to consult with, right, you need to understand why they love that product so much and try to maintain those things. Thankfully we are able to kind of do surveys, gather like qualitative information, quantitative information to kind of identify what does this person say by, oh, I love the comfort of the forefoot, for example. And we're able to quantify that and understand it, and then try to replicate it or maintain it in the coming shoes. So these are things that we can measure. Um, so that's something that we try to do, is try to maintain the love things and try to evolve the experience in the areas that we feel can um, be addressed further, or can be researched further, or can be explored. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to share? Any other kind of tidbits or nuggets of wisdom that you want to share from the design side of? And we really appreciate you sharing what you have. Anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, not every shoe works for, not every like solution's gonna work for the designed intended person. We produce shoes en masse. We do our best to create solutions that work for everybody, but um the foot or people are different. Everyone's foot is different. Everyone's, mechanics are slightly different, right? So there's not going to be one solution for everybody that works for everybody. So that's all I can say. It's like it's a process. It's an amazing um, process to work with athletes to kind of create a performance product that we love to say works, but not all product works for everybody. You got to find what works for you and run with it. Yeah.
And keeps you guys being able to make more products that will fit a different cohort. So it's like you said, it's not going to work for everybody, but it gives you more of a market to keep chasing down.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, bring in better product for the athletes. Um, yeah.
Well, hey Zach, really appreciate the time. Thanks again. Again, awesome amount of information. We really appreciate you taking the time to come and share that with us.
My pleasure, Alex. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Cheers, brother.
Cheers.